And the first of those speakers will be Marcus White. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately drop down out of screen share, and I'm going to hand over to Marcus for the first formal part of the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hello. Yeah, great intro, Chris. Thank you very much. And it is it's also a good segue because about a year ago this month, I was doing road shows with Chris around the UK around the concept of 3D printing, scanning, digital design, as per this little image here, scan, design, create. They're the three ingredients that, that build to chairside dentistry. And at that time, we'd only just got our first 3D, well, not our first 3D printer, but a 3D printer that was going to help us with restorative dentistry. So I had a dream about all the things that it might be able to bring to my practice, bring to my patients and my team. And seeing all those little items there in Chris's intro reminded me of all the things I hoped and aspired that it would bring. And normally when we go into an experiment or an adventure with those kind of hopes, we're let down at some point, or there's an obstacle to overcome and what have you. But I can tell you, and I'm going to show you, that is ticked all of my boxes. And I believe this is the comeback of chairside dentistry, because we've heard of chairside dentistry before, and it's not the first time it's been discussed, and there's been pieces of software and pieces of equipment that could bring this to life. But for me, they always felt quite techy and took time away from what I felt I ought to be doing. But this time around, I truly believe that it's plug and play, and that's what's going to make it different this time. So with that, I'm just going to give you a brief intro into me if you've not heard me speak before, and then we'll get onto the good stuff. And what the good stuff's going to look like is I'm speaking for 30 minutes and then Raj's. We both have decent experience in chairside, but coming at it from a slightly different viewpoint, which I think is really valuable. But I expect that what you're going to see is some universal approaches and some universal benefits that's brought to us and our patients. So this is my 20th century building called the Courtyard in Huddersfield in Yorkshire, in the heart of the UK. Inside that, we have some 21st century tech. Every one of my treatment rooms, including the treatment coordinator consult suite, has an iTero in it. That's 7. And behind that, we have a 21st century thinker, which is me. What that means is that whether it's a scanner or digital design, or in this case, chairside, I like to push the boundaries. I like to go all in, as you'll hear me say through this lecture today, because that's the only way I can find out if something really works, is not to do a bit of it, but to do it, a lot of it, and offer it in as many different variants as I can. Here's a little video that we're going to lead up to that shows what my digital practice looks like. Because over the past few years, I've built and orchestrate one of the most truly digital practices in the UK. That means that every patient touch point, every experience is digitally powered. Digital consult, digital design, digital lab, digital workflows, and digital communication at every step of the journey. This creates a digitally powered patient experience, a seamless digital process from start to finish. A team of highly skilled personnel and standardized digital workflows allow the different parts of the process to work in harmony. Let me introduce you to my orchestra. Let's hear them play. So hopefully in there you can see my commitment to digital, how it affects real patients with real problems. And so let me introduce you to the 3D print side of things, because that's the area of chairside that I've been experimenting with in the last 12 months. Now, when you're going to take on something new and experiment or innovate, you need to have a reason. You need to have a rationale to why you're going to do that. So here I've put together 10 ingredients for not only why you might implement these things, but how you might do it. Because whenever I lecture on any new topic, I don't just want to tell you what's achievable, but I want to let you know how to achieve it. So the first thing we found was we needed a pain point. Why bother? What's wrong with the current status quo, the hangover of 20th century dentistry? What are we trying to resolve? Well, one of those for us was freehand composite bonding, which has been around for a decade, but grew in massive popularity over the last few years. And as beautiful as it is on the day it's placed, we find patients tend to chip, and it requires a lot of repairs. So if there was an indirect material that could offer greater wear resistance, greater aesthetics, we thought that was something worth exploring. The other pain point is just the temporary crown on a posterior crown, the two-visit approach to dentistry. Wouldn't it be amazing if chairside dentistry could make dentistry live, could remove that distance between the clinician and the technician and bring that process closer together? And if you could bring the costs down at the same time, then that would be another pain point it would resolve. The second is a compelling story. So as per Chris's intro, what I love most about chairside is the compelling story that we can tell our patients about what's going to bring to their experience with our practice. We've already found out that through scanning, we create massive loyalty between us and our patient base, because they understand that whether it's a veneer, a crown, a bridge, or a full arch implant case, once we've been involved in the design and fabrication of their treatment, then they know that they have to come back to us if anything needs doing. So likewise, the more integrated you become in the patient's lab work, so to speak, the more loyalty you create. And if you're telling a patient about being able to deliver things in real time, in the moment, one visit, and that you and your team are creating that, that creates a compelling story, and compelling stories get retold. The third point here is the scanner itself. So you need a scanner. You're going to see the main equipment ingredients are a scanner, either a 3D printer or a mill, and somewhere where the design is happening. So number 4 is, as I say, the piece of equipment creating this restoration, be that a 3D printer in my case and a mill, or a printer in Raj's case. And then you need some personnel carrying out these processes. Now, for many of us watching, that might seem like a sticking point. And you might think, well, where am I going to find the personnel to do these jobs? And what I like to say on that point is that it's odd that we don't find it challenging to find personnel to. My favorite example is the endodontist. All right. So if I told you to go and find someone who could stick tiny wires down the inside of the nerve canals of teeth and then fill those teeth up with rubber sticks, where are you going to find such a human? Do they even exist? But you go and do that, right? We can all find an endodontist to work in our practice. But if I told you to find someone who could maybe handle digital design and CAD/CAM software, you'd think that was almost impossible, but it isn't. If to find a technician who'd love to work, in a really close clinical environment with you, we've always found it easy to recruit technicians for our practice because it gives them such a different experience than maybe working in a big lab and never seeing where their work goes or the real impact it has. And likewise, finishing restorations is something that either you can train your existing staff to do, or as we've just done, going back to Chris's icon, we've started recruiting trainee assistant nursing staff, but that are going to be dual qualified. So we're going to train them how to be clinical assistants for the team, but we're also going to train them on aspects of digital design, fabrication, and finishing so that they can encompass what I believe will be both roles as needed in the modern dental practice. On to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So number 6, yes, you're going to need some space where this happens. There is going to have to be a place where the equipment lives and where some of these personnel live. You're going to need some patience, but what's wonderful is when you start conjuring up opportunities for chairside dentistry, the patients jump out the woodwork. You will have light bulb moments, and that's probably the funnest thing I've been doing over the last 12 minutes, is saying, this is how I would have treatment planned this. This is how I would have restored this a year ago. But then you have the light bulb goes, oh, actually, this could be a perfect patient for a chairside 1 hour crown. This could be a perfect patient for 3D printed zero prep veneers. And they're the cases you're going to see. Number 8, the price point. So what's interesting about price points is that, and like I say, I've lectured this in different venues, online and in person. And, when you start considering what the business plan is going to be, you think about how I'm going to price these products for my patients. And what's interesting is you have to consider the pain point it's eliminating. So for our composite bonded replacement, we've priced it very similar to composite bonding. We believe it's going to be an elevated product with better initial glaze, better longevity, better chip and wear resistance. And what I also like is if something does happen to that 3D printed veneer, then we carry out, instead of having to have somebody try and carry out that artwork, freehand composite bonding, in the same way, in exactly the same way as they did it in the year 2022, it can't be done. Or if it can be done, art you can only do once, is my opinion. But if you have a 3D digital design of something, you can print it again, exactly the same every time. So if someone fractures, chips their 3D printed veneer, then you do the following: reprint, repair. Sorry, I had a really good acronym for this. Reprint, replace, stick it back on. Okay. So that's the point. So they can get that exactitude every time, and that gives them a future proofing for that treatment. Number 9 is the workflow. So we've developed different workflows for the 1 hour crown, which I'll talk about, for zero prep composite bonding, and for minimal prep composite 3D print veneers as well. And we're going to talk about those as I move on. And then number 10 is experience and confidence. So initially, you'll be testing these things out. You'll have workflows, you'll evolve them, you'll involve members of your team to deliver them. And as you go through that, you'll develop your own experience and confidence in these techniques. And then more patients will, commit to being a new candidate for you. And that's been my experience over the last 12 months. So the dream is, for me, and the 2 types of case you're going to see me talk about today, the dream is, 1, could you replace freehand bonding with a digitally designed, predictable technique with superior aesthetics and longevity, and be more profitable than if you're doing freehand composite bonding? 2, could you replace zirconia crowns or Emax crowns with a one-stop product that is 83% cheaper, uses 33% less clinical time, and avoids the need for a temporary for your patient? And my answer to both of those has so far been yes. So first, we're going to look at the first point there, the 3D printed posterior crown. Here's the marketing we created around that to help patients understand what we'd be delivering for them. And those watching old enough to remember, there was a time where, prior to smartphones and digital cameras, where if you were getting some photos processed, you'd take your film to the chemist, and they could get them back to you in 1 hour. And that at that time was the future. And it was a technological breakthrough that they could get your photos back. And you'd take them out, and 4 would be good and the rest would be rubbish. So the 1 hour crown speaks to that. I'm going to play you a few minutes of a video that I'm speaking about how we introduce the concept of the 1 hour crown to our patient. Hey everyone, my name is Marcus White and I'm here today at the Courtyard, which is my practice in Huddersfield. We're a 7-surgery private practice, and over the last decade we've become very, very digital. And what that means is we've got an intraoral scanner in each of our treatment rooms, and we've also accidentally built an on-site digital lab. So we've got a lot of digital designers that we can access, and the big game changer of late has been
accessibility to 3D printing and the ability for those 3D printers to print definitive restorations. And what I mean by that is final crowns, final veneers, and final implant crowns for our patients. And that's what I look forward to talking to you about today. We've had the Sprint Ray printer for about 6 months, but as is typical for us, the only way we really feel we can explore a new piece of technology is to go all in. So in the same way that when we got our first digital intraoral scanner 10 years ago, the way that we went all in on that was that I stopped ordering putty right away, so that all my associates had no option, no choice but to use the scanner. So now, fast forward 10 years, if we're going to really see the ability, the capability of a 3D printer, well, then we have to test it in all the ways that we would, truly find out its worth. And that's as many treatments as possible on as many patients as possible. So for us, one of the most common treatments and bread and butter treatments of any dental practice is the posterior crown, right? So over the years, that crown has taken a lot of forms. It might have been a porcelain fused to metal in the olden days. It might have been a gold crown going back even further. It might have been some sort of horrible metal alloy, none of which were perfect materials, right? More recently, porcelain materials might have been zirconia or Emax. So the question was, how will a 3D printed material line up against those other historic materials? And we've been keen to find out. And so have our patients. One of the key aspects there is that our patients trust us. They trust us to be innovative for their benefit, not just because it's a fun toy or a gimmick. They know that we're going to embrace technology because we believe it's going to deliver better care for them. And in the case of our patients, and what you're going to see today is speed and efficiency, a single visit instead of multiple visits, no loose temporary crown that could possibly fall off, and a material that is not new to dentistry. 3D print is fundamentally a composite material, which we've been evolving, dentistry's been evolving for the last 20 to 30 years. So there's nothing new about that. It's simply the way it can be fabricated that's going to change dentistry. So I'm really excited to be able to show a case today. We've got a very willing patient who's come in for a 1 hour crown, which is what we call it, where fundamentally we're going to have a 30-minute prep appointment, a 1 hour lead time on the design, fabrication and print of the crown, and then we're going to have a 30-minute appointment to fit the crown itself. We've got some easy to understand marketing for patients, to start getting them used to the notion and the idea of what printing a crown while they wait might look and feel like. Full disclosure, we have tested this crown just a moment ago, and we can assure you the fit was very accurate, such that it was a struggle to remove. So we won't be repeating that, and we're going to go straight in with the cement now. Hopefully an exciting showcase of what a very common treatment can be elevated to with this technology, but also real world, real problems, real patients in a real practice. You get that lovely click.
So that was just a glimpse of what our live chairside dentistry looks like. And it is everything I'm saying there. It is super exciting. You can see the different members of the team that get involved. And it is transforming patients' lives because it connects the clinical and technical side in a way we've never done before. Nothing about chairside will eliminate the labs, that we already work with, but it just reduces the physical geographical distance between the processes, and in so reduces the intellectual distance. We understand more about the process. We understand more about how our preps will, behave better underneath these restorations. So it just elevates everyone and elevates dentistry. So the new restorative triad is this: intraoral scanning, remote digital design, and 3D printing. So that's the way that we've carried out chairside dentistry in our practice until recently. Okay. And now iTero Align have introduced a piece of software powered by Exocad called the iTero Design Suite. And anybody who has an iTero and pays their license fee will get access to the iTero Design Suite. It's a downloadable piece of software where personnel in your practice can carry out these kind of designs. And in our experience, this can happen. So that when I say remote digital design, that means that we send it to someone outside the practice to design it for us and then send the file back. They have a big team on standby. They do it very quickly. But when we've done it ourselves in-house with personnel who are not dentally or lab trained, they were still able to do excellent work in good time so that we could meet our 1 hour crown brief. So I'm just going to walk you through one case now, and I'll tell you the compelling story of how they presented while we are there. We have some photography here. We have some scans. What's really nice when I put a case together these days is I can just use scan imagery, and it really feels like the real world for everyone. So this patient had a really big porcelain rehab with me, and the only tooth we didn't do was this lower left 6 gold crown. He came in and experienced some sensitivity with it, and we assessed it. And when we were assessing it, we bring up the scan and we show him the problems. Okay, we describe the over eruption because it's non-functional and that has exposed more of the dentine, which is why it's sensitive. There is some leakage at the back where it's hard for him to keep it hygienically maintained, and therefore, increased coverage and some better aesthetics, what we discussed. And we told him we could have 2 visits, but he comes from some distance. So we described the 1 hour crown instead. So here's my prep. Now, when you scan, this might be obvious, it might be not, but it's a key point. Get your pens at the ready. So when you are if you're going to do chair side, you will know that if you use a restorative workflow, then that file goes to get cleaned up in Costa Rica prior to it being available. All right. So you must scan this, or at least we scan this with a standard study model scan. Okay. The study model version of the scan, because then it's accessible immediately in real time. And whether it's your iTero Design Suite or some other system, you can access it right away. Otherwise, you're in problems. Don't make that mistake and have to have someone sitting around your practice for a day. Okay. So there's the prep, knife edge margins, as per usual, and we get that scanned, and off it goes. And then in our practice, then we ring down and say, please get this cracking, we've sent it. So here's some slides from the iTero Design Suite. As I said, powered by Exocad. Exocad is arguably the most popular and most well considered design software out there. So when the clever people at LineTech bought Exocad, they really can see far into the future and see, applications and capabilities that we couldn't at that time. Now, joining the dots, here's the pun, we can see how it all comes together. All right, we have the scanner, we have design software now at our fingertips. We can connect those dots for the benefit of our patients. So an AI initial proposal is generated by the software. You modify it, you adjust the occlusion, the morphology to some degree, and where you're ready, you send it to your printer. Print comes out with some little struts on it, which are removed, and you literally polish and glaze it. And glaze in porcelain terms would mean you'd have to put it in an oven. In here, it just means it's a curing machine. And then we fitted it. And the resin comes in a range of shades that match, standard shades, and we get a really nice outcome. So what you've seen here is the following workflow take place: a consult, a treatment plan with the patient. Now, the treatment plan's the same, man needs a crown, but we tell a compelling story about how we can deliver that crown in real time and save him a visit. The fee for that, thereby, is no less than a traditional crown, because actually the pain point is that the patient is only coming the once. So interestingly, we do not price our 3D printed crowns any differently than our zirconia. You will hear some figures and facts on how many of these we've placed today. I hope you're impressed. We'll come to that in a minute. Then you prep, you scan, you don't provide a temp. So that's a 30-minute appointment for that. Then my patient goes downstairs, watches MasterChef on our television, which is always on. And then we do digital design, either, like I say, remotely or with the design suite. And in your workflow, you will be deciding who, how, and where that digital design happens. Then you're going to fabricate it with either the print or a mill. And again, personnel are going to finish that. The patient waits 1 hour and then you fit the crown in about 5 to 10 minutes. We have a spare surgery, so we put the patient in that surgery and I leave the appointment I'm in to fit the crown and come back. So the reduction in clinical time is really quite dramatic. In my initial workflow, and I think it's a good tip when you start this process, particularly if you're printing or milling this virtually, that is without a model, which you can do, and it's quicker. You might want to take a bite wing to assess for yourself and for clinical records and anybody else who wants to know how well those margins are adapted to the preparation. So take bite wing to assess and record margins. Our numbers in 1 year of this model is that we have fitted 1,623 3D printed posterior dental crowns. Yes, I told you we went all in, okay? That's a lot of crowns, but you'll be doing a lot of crowns at your practice. It is the bread and butter of dentistry, in my opinion. And when you make delivering that product easier, cheaper if you choose to, or quicker, you'll find that you don't try using direct techniques so often. You don't do, a ginormous composite with a poor contact point because you can do something like this. So I believe it will elevate the treatment planning you carry out as well. Of these 1,623 that I have personally placed, we have had 3 fractures, not 3%, 3, okay? And what I tell people when I speak about materials and, fracture rate and how strong is it and is it strong enough, is that I have patients who can fracture anything. They could fracture a zirconia crown, an Emax crown. Those patients in those clinical situations can fracture a material. So this is our results. So whether it's because the material gives a bit, I don't know why, but it's working amazingly well. And we cement these just with GIC 99% of the time. We also are placing 3D printed posterior implant crowns, and we've placed 634 of those. All our singles, all our 3-unit bridges are 3D printed, and we've only had 14 of those fracture. And again, I can have a patient fracture zirconia. So I hope that's an interesting and exciting bit on the 1 hour crown. Before I hand over to Raj, I'm going to blitz through some 3D printed aesthetic cases. I'm going to blitz through them because it is the mainstay of what Raj is talking about, but I wanted you to see a couple of cases, a couple of applications that we found. Zero prep and minimal prep. I think I've covered the patient types, but in brief, type 1, a patient who wants composite bonding, is aware of the price point. They also want zero prep. They are, they're very firm on that, but you believe you can deliver better immediate and long-term aesthetics with print. And you anticipate that print will have better stain resistance and better fracture resistance. And if the material does fracture, you can reprint, remove, replace. Thank you. Number 2, the patient who wants porcelain veneers but has a limited budget. So we've had patients like that, I can't afford that. Okay, well, we could offer it in 3D print. It will have a reduced warranty period compared to zirconia. That's what we offer, just to create a distinction. I don't know how long it's going to last, but to create a distinction. Material is more cost effective for us, the practice. Profitability is maintained. And maybe you create an extended warranty scheme with a subscription model so that the patient get greater loyalty to your practice. These are the light bulbs. These are the business models happening. And thirdly, the patient who wants the outcome quickly, even in an aesthetic situation, anterior bridge. You want to extract a tooth, prep, fit on the day, okay? The patient who wants the outcome quickly and would perceive value in receiving the outcome in 1 day. Your price point in this case is the same as zirconia because you're delivering results in 1 day is beneficial to the patient and adds pressure to the lab team, truth be told. And this workflow can either be zero prep or traditional. Okay. As we get closer to my time limit, I just speak faster, so keep up. Case 1, patient had Invisalign. Patient had asymmetric spacing, which we did not and could not close because the lowers were already aligned. I'll show you how that presented. Okay, so we have all of our dentition, we have some strange spacing, and the lowers are already aligned. So these, and the teeth are clearly non-uniform and, and in certain aspects microdontic. There you go. That's our after. So we literally scanned, designed, prepped. We carry out a digital test drive. So we do a digital model first, apply self-cure acrylic in a stent, photograph that. I haven't got that in the case because the patient didn't want her face in the slides, but we do that to assess, confirm, verify the design, hence the test drive term beforehand. And then once that's done, we just etch, bond, and fit. Case 2, another space case, again, another zero prep case. And another instance where alignment would have simply made the smile smaller, and we consulted for all for all options, of course, but it's clear that his teeth are already small, and retracting that would not be beneficial aesthetically. And that's the outcome from that, which once again, we did a digital test drive first and then applied. So it's a 90-minute fit appointment, zero prep, 3D print veneers. And that's our before and after for that case, which I love. Finally, a minimal prep case. So there's a binary distinction, zero prep for people who want composite bonding and don't want you to touch their teeth, and a minimal prep case, again, for patients who do recognize, either because they've got existing restorations or we need to modify widths or will benefit from adjusting the soft tissue. So that's a minimal prep, but same price point as composite bonding. Hurry up. So we've got some lovely BL3 shade resins available now, and the translucency looks exactly like zirconia and Emax, and we get really nice results. Look how the soft tissue loves the product. And I think a lot of the cautions, question marks that one might have when testing a new material are around these, biocompatibility, longevity, things like this. But in the words of my senior technician, he's retiring next month, so we'll have a shout out for Bernard Green, but he's been in the industry for 35 years, and when we talked about 3D print resin, I said, are you worried, what are you? And he said, it's just another material. And he said, and guess what, the ones that came before it weren't all perfect. So with that, I'm going to wind down and hope you enjoyed that.